October 13th, 1951, to an alias by the name of Mrs. N, a 47-year-old woman concerned about the impact of her suicide attempt at the age of 21. Carl Jung writes as follows: It is not impossible to kill part of yourself unless you kill yourself first. If you ruin your conscious personality, the so-called ego personality, you deprive the self of its real goal, namely to become real itself. The goal of life is the realization of the self. If you kill yourself, you abolish that will of the self to become real. But it may arrest your personal development inasmuch it is not explained. You ought to realize that suicide is murder, since after suicide there remains a corpse exactly as with any ordinary murder. Only it is yourself that has been killed. And this next letter is dated July 10th, 1946, to a correspondent of his regarding suicide. It reads as follows: The idea of suicide, understandable as it is, does not seem condemnable to me. We live in order to gain the greatest possible amount of spiritual development and self-awareness. As long as life is possible, even if only in a minimal degree, you should hang on to it in order to scoop it up for the purpose of conscious development. To interrupt life before its time is to bring to a standstill an experiment which we have not set up. We have found ourselves in the midst of it and must carry it through to the end. Beautiful stuff. And this next letter, rather lengthy, is dated July 25th, 1946, to a letter to a woman named Eleanor Bertine concerning Christine Mann's death on that very same day. It is really a question whether a person affected by such a terrible illness should or may end her life. It is my attitude in such cases not to interfere. I would let things happen as they were so, because I'm convicted that if anybody has it in himself to commit suicide, then practically the whole of his being is going that way. I have seen cases where it would have been something short of criminal to hinder the people because according to all rules, it was in accordance with the tendency of their unconscious and thus the basic thing. So I think nothing is really gained by interfering with such an issue. It is presumably to be left to the free choice of the individual. Anything that seems to be wrong to us can be right under certain circumstances over which we have no control, and an end of which we do not understand. If Christine Mann had committed suicide under the stress of unbearable pain, I should have thought that this was the right thing, as it was not the case. I think it was in her stars, written in her stars, to undergo such a cruel agony for reasons that escape our understanding. Our life is not made entirely by ourselves. He's right on that. Our life is not made entirely by ourselves. The main bulk of it is brought into existence out of sources that are hidden to us. Even complexes can start a century or more before a man is born. There is something called karma. Beautiful stuff here. This next letter is dedicated to a terminally ill person on the 19th of November, 1955. The reason for such an unreasonable attitude with me is that I am not at all sure what will happen to me after death. I have good reasons to assume that things are not finished with death. Life seems to be an interlude in a long story. Isn't that beautiful? Just reflect on that. Life seems to be an interlude in a long story. So it sounds like most of his claims here from the letters is stating that there is so much out of our control that dictates who we become, that it is outside of our understanding to understand ourselves. Beautiful. And this last letter is dated December 7th, 1941, the same day that the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. It is written to a woman by the alias of Alice Lewison Crowley, who was suggesting suicide. Here was Jung's response. My dear Mrs. Crowley, I begin to feel my age, and whenever I get a bit too tired, I also feel my heart, and that is decidedly disagreeable and makes me cross with the whole world, which is damnable anyhow. I went through a period of black depression during the first 4 days. Only yesterday I begin to feel human again. And then your situation in Europe came back to me with a bang. I beg you consider your life. If they are going to send you to Poland, you only can suicide yourself. Please forgive this crudeness. It is my anxiety for your life which makes me say such things. Remember, I warned you before America went to war. It is urgent that you do something, and quick. Europe is in a desperate situation. I am sorry, and I am helpless. Yours affectionately, C.G. Jung. I hope you guys found some value in this. Thank you for watching.